Welcome to ConstructTech TV. For this week's tech update, I thought we'd go through this tech journey recap, more specifically, the top 5 trends that you need to know to keep your job sites humming. These include safety in construction, cybersecurity, let's talk about fleets, how about innovation, and knowledge sharing. So first up, let's talk about safety. We all know safety is of utmost importance in the construction industry. And we're all just finishing up the busy season, and now we're heading into fall. So this might be a really good time to shore up all your strategies. And I'm sure you've heard many of the startling statistics. In fact, OSHA says on the average, more than 93 of all of our workers are killed a week. I mean, these are startling statistics. That is 13 deaths every day. So we need to do something about those numbers. Now, OSHA suggests eliminating the fatal 4. Now, you've heard us talk about these before. This includes falls, struck by an object, electrocutions, and caught in and between. And it says this would save 602 workers' lives in America every year. But that isn't enough. I believe technology can help improve safety. And that's what we talk about all the time, because it can also take some of the strain off of all of your workers. Take the example of the autonomous impact protection vehicles. Now, these have sensors that enable it to follow a lead vehicle that's unmanned. And this removes the driver from the vehicle in dangerous situations. And this is the type of technology I'd love to see more of. So how can you keep all of our workers safe? To learn even more about this, check out the segment that we did, and I interviewed Royal Truck Equipment in episode 13. You might even learn more about autonomous trucks coming in the very near future. Now that's how we can drive home keeping our workers safe at the worksite. Next, let's talk about cybersecurity. If you know me well, you know that I'm a stickler for good security. Maybe we're even shocked, or all of you, to hear about the HBO hacking. I wasn't. This is happening all too often, and we need to create good policies. This is especially critical for all of our smaller construction companies, because these type of businesses tend to be the targets more often. And what's worse, 60% of small firms go out of business. Now, did you know this? Within the first 6 months of a data breach? Is your company protected? Now, let me ask you that. I want you to think about that for a second, because if not, now is the time. The government is even starting, finally, to get involved. On August 1, the government introduced this bipartisan legislation. And it's really great because the Internet of Things Cybersecurity Improvement Act of 2017 aims to help improve the security of Internet-connected devices. So the good news is something is being done. And you want to learn more? Listen to the radio show segment of the Peggy Smedley Show on August 2nd to understand the entire IoT Cyber Act. It'll actually help you understand when I was talking about how we all might be taking one more step to keep all of our devices protected. But your company still needs to take the steps necessary to protect your business. Are you thinking about your fleets? The December 18th deadline for the ELD mandate is fast approaching. Now, I have a question for you. Have you picked your electronic logging device? Now, the new rule requires the use of devices by drivers to present records for duty status. Now, today I thought I would give you a quick primer on your options. The first is simply by using an app. Drivers can use smartphones to log their data. And there are many options out there for you to choose from. Now, this is the good news for smaller companies looking for a quick, easy way to comply. Now, another option is a complete logging device solutions. Now, this is a bit more comprehensive, but you can also provide you with any of the analytics and monitoring capabilities. It really just depends on the needs of your company. Now, as we said, the deadline is fast approaching, but if you still are unsure about the mandate, check out our rundown that we did on episode 11 to understand the rules and the regulations. This is one regulation you don't want to get rolled over by. The next big trend I'm seeing is quite simply the move toward greater innovation in general. And there are so many different areas we are hearing about from construction companies. Now, let's talk about some of these big areas of innovation. We talk about 3D printing, let's say artificial intelligence. How about augmented or virtual reality? We've talked about biometrics. How about drones, laser scanning? How about predictive maintenance, robotics, sensors, and even wearables? Simply, my question to you is, have you updated your technology? Are you constantly looking to make updates? Now, we know your competitors are. If you aren't staying innovative, you're going to be left behind. So we encourage you to be proactive, not reactive. Always keep an eye on emerging trends. And if you have not already, I want you to check out episodes 11 and 13, because those are really good episodes for you to understand. And if you can't do it yourself, we will keep a watchful eye for you. The final big trend I'm seeing is the need for greater knowledge sharing. Now, your seasoned professionals are retiring. We talk about this, right? And the younger millennials are coming into the fold. So how can you start passing on that wisdom or all those insights that have been garnered through the years? So I'm going to give you a few of my top tips that I think can help you. The first is to pair all those older employees, such as your superintendents, with the younger ones. How about pairing estimators and project managers with the new employees? Many companies take this approach to train and educate workers. It's a great idea. Seasoned professionals can teach the younger generation, let's say, the tricks of the trade. They can teach them process and methods that have actually stood the test of time. But my recommendation is to bring technology into the fold as well. And that leads nicely into my next tip. Leverage technology. Technology can actually accumulate this knowledge into one database. The younger generation can then tap into this data of information. But even more than technology, my final tip is to create an environment for collaboration. You can't beat collaboration. And this includes developing mentor programs and job shadowing. For all your workers in the office, you might even design this collaborative work environment. It's a pretty cool idea because job sharing can occur even just a few hours a day. This is good to be critical as the next generation takes the reins, or even as workers come side by side for the next few years. So in summary, older workers can teach the younger workers. Experience company policies, let's say politics, how about industry knowledge, and simply know all the ropes. As for interpersonal skills, older workers have more social and more skilled on one-on-one relationships. But let's think about the flip side of this. Younger workers can teach older workers the new technology. They can make them more comfortable learning and adapting to it. As for balancing work and life, younger workers are not as career-driven sometimes and have a different focus on all these attitudes. They are also risk takers. Younger workers are more out-of-the-box thinkers sometimes. But education is always a two-way street. And now is a perfect time to capitalize on what we can all learn in construction. And that's our and your special tech update for today. Welcome to Safety Zone. About 2.3 million workers are exposed to respirable crystalline silica in the workplace. This includes 2 million construction workers who drill, cut, crush, or even grind. But this is all set to change on September 23rd. Why? A new mandate is coming. But first, let me give you a little history. The U.S. Department of Labor initially highlighted the hazards of silica in the 1930s after a wave of worker deaths. The department then set standards to limit exposure in 1971 when OSHA was first created. However, today, these standards are actually considered outdated. That is, until the new mandate goes into effect later this month. So what does this mandate say? It requires employers to use engineering controls such as water or ventilation, to limit exposure. Companies will also need to develop a written control plan and offer medical exams to highly exposed workers. Finally, construction companies will need to train workers on the risks. So OSHA says this new rule will save more than 600 lives each year. It is projected also to save about $7.7 billion annually. But there's a little ripple in all of this. A court case is pending that could change the outcome of the rule in the very near future. It is the North America's Building Trade Unions versus OSHA and the U.S. Department of Labor. The petitioner is saying that the projections of the morbidity risks are neither credible nor reliable. But here's the twist. The case is set to be heard after September 23rd. For now, construction companies will need to comply. All of you will have to comply. These unions are not alone. Many organizations, such as the National Association of Home Builders and even the National Association of Manufacturers, say the rule is flawed. Now, here's why they're saying all of it is flawed. And some of them are saying the broad language of the regulation. Certain provisions are not reasonable or even appropriate, and the rule does not provide clear direction. Still, everyone can pretty much agree that something needs to be done to minimize the number of workers exposed to silica. And I think we all can agree safety on the job site is the #1 concern for everyone on the job site, regardless of the outcome of this court case. Now that's your Safety Zone for today. I'm with Nancy Novak, and we're here in beautiful California right now. Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Peggy. It's great to be here.
So Nancy, let's talk a little bit what you've been doing. You are an industry veteran. You've had great opportunities to be in construction, and now you're with Above Glass Ceilings, but you're doing so much right now. And we've been talking about that women in construction are really not involved as much as they should be. I think the number right now when we look at is about 9.1%. That's really not enough women in the industry. What do we need to do to get more women involved in this industry?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I've been studying this for quite a few years, and you're right. It's just right around that 10% mark when it comes to women in operations and especially in management positions. So we've done a pretty good job of trying to fill that pipeline and recruit women into the business and get the excitement there. Where we're not doing so well is keeping, promoting, and advancing them in the industry into leadership positions. And that's where I think the industry needs to change a little bit, and we need to really study some of the biases that happen, even with the best of intentions. And once we understand those, I think we're going to make some improvements.
Do you think we need to be both genders, men and women need to get actively involved so that we can get more women involved?
Absolutely. And what I find fascinating is when I speak all over the country, I have men and women in my audiences, and when I talk about women in the business, the men are just as concerned as the women are. Right now we are facing a global talent war and a shortage of skilled labor, and trust me, the men who own these businesses want the women to stay and advance as much as we do.
What are we doing as an industry as a whole? Is the construction industry on a growth mode right now, or do we have to do a lot more just in general as an industry as a whole?
The construction industry is definitely on a growth mode right now. I mean, they're moving fast. As a whole, when it comes to solving the skilled labor problem, we need to change how we do work. We need to start getting more innovative. We need to start doing off-site manufacturing. We need to start looking at more modern technologies and modern methods of construction to attract that talent and to replenish our skilled trades.
Part of the challenge we have is we don't think globally. Sometimes we just think locally. What do we need to do about that?
Well, again, so globally, when you look at some of the emerging markets around the world, you'll see that these modern methods of construction are being used because they don't have the same infrastructure and materials and skilled labor force that we do. So we can learn from them, honestly, and to make the work possible over there, we're having to do things that we don't necessarily have to do here, but we should be doing.
Is part of that because we have too many disparate systems, and that's our problem right now? We have to do too many rekeying manual things, and that's part of the things that we talk about, why we've started the Baseline to Build On initiative.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of it, there's a lot of workarounds. In order to go from, you know, the architect, engineering, and construction phases. And if we can get down to a single platform where we're more fluid and we're able to communicate in a much more efficient way, then I think you're going to see a lot more willingness to move the needle on the innovation.
What do you think is the greatest achievement this industry has had over the years that you think has been a success for the industry as a whole?
Well, I mean, definitely, you know, moving the design into a BIM model has been a huge achievement. Even though we only use a fraction of it, and we should use more of it, and there's other dimensions that we could be tapping into, I think that's probably the single biggest thing that's changed the industry in my career.
Do you think, though, since 10 years since we started using BIM, we've maximized it, or there's still a lot more that we could do with that?
Oh, we've barely scratched the surface with it. There's still a lot more we can do with it. Like I said, there's many more dimensions to it, and the standardization of how we use it is something that I think is critical for us to be able to leverage that across the industry.
How about technology in general? When you look at it right now, technology is really a critical success opportunity for the industry. Are you seeing the industry taking advantage of it, or we still have so much more to do there as well?
I mean, I do see a lot of technology popping up all over the place, and I do think we're taking advantage of it, but I don't think that we're really leveraging the advantage that we're taking, because everybody's kind of competing with each other, and they're kind of working against each other to kind of, I don't know, to get a monopoly, so to speak, on certain processes. And so I feel like in order to really move the industry in a meaningful way, we have to start leveraging each other and communicating better, and, you know, getting succinct on our technology.
I think one of the interesting things that we've seen in this industry is that women have taken a leading role in advancing technology and construction. You've been a part of that, a Women in Construction Award, and we honor some of those here at the Technology Day. How have you seen that in some of the things that you're doing and seeing women advancing?
Oh yeah, I definitely see women advancing in technology. I mean, it's interesting because based on whether you're in the architect, engineering, or construction role, technology is an area where women excel, and they can show their skills in that area without the same kind of intimidation you can get sometimes just in the field, right? So yeah, these women are doing great things. They're on social media. They're promoting, you know, what they're learning. They're sharing with each other, and I really feel like this is an area that women could. It could definitely lead to a larger ratio of women in our business.
We've got just a little bit more time, but before we go, talk about what you're doing with Above Glass Ceilings.
So at Above Glass Ceilings, we have a board of women who are construction professionals, and the whole idea behind this was, again, that leveraging point about trying to influence the advancement of women, not just in construction, but really focused on the STEM trades, because that's where we see this crisis, and we feel like if you can advance and promote women around the world, you're going to solve lots of problems economically and for the welfare of just the well-being of women and children and men everywhere. Every time you solve a problem for women, in other words, an issue where we are struggling with life balance, we solve the same problem for the men. And we see that in every industry. So we've learned a lot, and we're looking at this thinking, hey, why don't we use what we know how to do really well, which is build stuff, and try to leverage that, because construction touches every life and every industry in profound ways, and try to really help the advancement of women.
Nancy, thank you so much for being with us.
You're very welcome. It's great to be here.
All right, well, that's someone you should know, and we've taken it on the road right here in California. Will a robot replace your workers? IDC says that by 2025, robots will perform the tasks of 140 million full-time employees. Now, right now, I'm freaking you out, right? Here in Chicago, Novato predicts that by 2025, there will be at least 50% increase in jobs done by robots. Now, Laura's here with me right now, Laura Black, the editor of Construct Tech Magazine, to talk about it. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Laura, you and I talk about this at Construct Tech all the time. Will that actually happen? And do contractors and construction companies really need to be concerned about whether robots are going to take over their jobs and replace workers at the job site? What do you think?
Well, I don't think that they need to be concerned, but yeah, I do absolutely think in some aspects robots will replace workers, and in others it'll create new jobs. So we'll see a lot of robots, bricklaying machines, drones, really providing new opportunities for workers. But there'll also be new jobs, technical jobs, that the millennial generation can come in and help out with.
So when we talk about that, the point of what people need to understand is actually what is a robot. Because I think when we have this perception, we think of what's in the movies, these big creatures coming to the site, you know, and taking over things. But a robot can be a drone, as you mentioned. A robot can be that bricklaying arm, can be a 3D printer that's going to be creating these new buildings at the job site. So we have to really understand what actually is considered a robot, you know, and in these unmanned machines that we're talking about. So do we have to really think that these can work side by side with human workers? So do construction companies really need to understand what the future of their job site is going to look like and who they'll work with humans and not with humans? Do they need to have a better understanding of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we definitely do. As you mentioned, we see drones, we see bricklaying machines, we see automated trucks. We see a lot of different ways that robots are going to change the job site, and we definitely are going to need the workforce to work alongside them to make our job sites safer and more productive.
When we look at all this technology, and it's things that we've written about, again, in Construct Tech magazine, we see machine learning and artificial intelligence, and we talk about augmented reality and virtual reality. Is a lot of this changing so fast that companies need to think about this is going to influence them right now? Or is it more that they need to start understanding how their companies are going to change, and they need to actually stay in tune and up to date with the emerging technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely have to stay up to date with the emerging technologies because it's going to change the way they work. It already is. So they definitely need to keep an eye on this trend, these robots that are coming in, and you know, help their workers understand the opportunities that it offers them.
And that's an interesting point, because I think when we look at the job site right now, the young millennials, as you mentioned, really want to work for companies that understand this new technology, this emerging technology that's disrupting all kinds of companies in every industry. And the key here is for a construction company to be willing to embrace it, to collaborate with this technology. And we're seeing a lot of construction companies actually doing it. They're using drones. They're seeing the value of them. And in some ways, it's opening up the opportunity for new jobs and new techniques and opportunities for companies and their employees to learn new skills.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big opportunity for people to come in, people who know how to use this technology, to come in and really use their skills to make the job site better.
Is there anything that you're seeing right now when we look at all of this that we say, there's an opportunity here for companies to really articulate a story about them and what they're opening? Because we know there's going to be a workforce shortage. So companies now can use some of this technology to fill that gap, and at the same time look for really good workers who say, I'm starting to understand how to actually operate some of this technology, how to actually leverage it for a construction company, and saying, look, as it changes, I have the knowledge. You know, as the aging workforce retires, this young millennial workforce comes in and says, I understand it. I'm able to adapt to it. Is there some great opportunities for construction companies?
Absolutely. I think the younger workforce can really come in and leverage this technology. And I don't think it's necessarily that robots are going to replace, but that they're going to work together. And I think that's something we're definitely going to be seeing.
We talk about all of these robots, everyone's thinking, but there still are a lot of hurdles of putting these robots on the job site. What do you think there? Everybody's so engaged in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think a big one that comes to mind is cost. We see a lot of the robots are very high priced. Some really good opportunities out there, but you know, just a high cost, and we're still in the early adopter phase. And as we always talk about, you know, when technology is first coming up, there's a high price point, but it's going to come down eventually, and then they'll really be able to leverage that.
And I think that's an interesting point, because when you think about cost, everybody's so excited, but they have to understand technology changes. It's also what's going to be the adaptation you're going to do, what's going to be the collaborative environment you're going to use. So you know, thinking about costs, and they change so fast. So what are you really going to use, and how are you going to use? How are you going to get the data out of all of this information? So that comes a big one. So let's kind of end on a high note. You know, when we think, are we going to still have that human point is still very important at the job site? Why do we need, for everybody who's watching today, to understand humans are still very important at the job site?
Robots and machines only provide the data, and humans still have to make the decisions. So that's why they're so important. Humans are never going away. It's never just going to be a robotic job site. Robots are just there to help and provide the information that they need.
And that's a good point, because I think we still need the trades. We still have to hook the plumbing. We still have to do the wiring. And all of those trades are still very important. And we still have to have the schools training those individuals at the job site, right?
Absolutely.
It's a critical part. Well, Laura, thank you so much for being with us. And that's your Innovation and Technology for today. Thanks for watching. Welcome to Got a Tool. Tools falling from heights are the 5th most serious workplace accident. Dan, did you know that?
No, I did not.
I'll tell you, this causes billions of dollars of expense and injuries and fatalities. In fact, OSHA has mandated that all tools used above ground level must be secured. Enter tool tethers. These are an effective way to protect you from falling objects. Now today we have a whole lineup from Hammerhead Industries here that we want to show you. And they're pretty interesting when you take a look. So we're going to start with the first one. And the first one we want to share with you is a product called the TL1 3024, and it's a 3/4 inch. And this product holds up to 15 pounds. And Dan, why don't you give it a try? Yep. Drop the product. Now hopefully you're using this type of one when you're on a scaffold or somewhere up high, and the idea is to protect someone so you don't drop that or hit somebody high up above. So now we've got another one, Dan, that's on your belt, and I think this product is designed to hold something with 3.5 pounds.
Yes.
And this is the RT3 5605, and it's got like a heavy duty retractor, right?
Yep, it's got a little lock on it, so when you undo the lock,
so if you're dropping a tool,
if you're using it and then
without
you drop
whacking
it,
yourself there.
Yeah, exactly. Then it drops, you know.
All right. So see, there you got another one. Now the next one I want to take a closer look is this is the RT4 5604. Now this has got a retractable tape lanyard. So if you wanted to use that, if you had a tape. Now what's interesting about this one, a tape measure actually did kill a man in New Jersey on a construction site a few years ago. So you want to be secure and make sure your tape measure is secure, because that's something that's kind of scary. You never think about a tape measure falling and actually killing someone.
It must have a lot of power.
I can't even laugh at that. Killed someone, then you say it has a lot of power. That's terrible. You can't say that. God. I guess it's that one. Yeah, you do. Now, what do we want to talk about here now? We want to talk about the next one that you have that's probably most important is the phone. How many people take a phone on the job site? Now you have one to keep your phone secure. Now, how many times do you drop your phone, crack it? I'll bet you that's probably the most important one of all. How many times have you dropped and cracked a phone and had to buy a new phone?
Oh, a bunch of times.
I'm telling you, I probably would save a lot of money for how many times my kids have dropped their phone. So I'll bet you construction job sites, that's probably where Apple and Samsung and all those guys are wishing this product never came to an existence, because now they're going to lose money just on that alone.
Oh, yeah.
So see, you have that. So you see, there's all kinds of these great little products that they have here. So we have them, and you could see them. So what do you think if you're going to use them? I don't know. I was thinking about this one. I was going to give this one a go. I don't know if I wanted to attach something here. I suppose I could do this. What do you think? Think I want to give it a try? I don't know. If I'm going to connect the tool. What do you think? I don't know. There you go. If I need it, I got it. There you go. So if you need to keep some pretty cool tools at your job site without losing them, and you know you lose a lot of tools, I wonder what the total cost of lost tools are. Well, now you can keep them at your job site. Well, that's our Got a Tool for today, right, Dan?
Yep.
Has anything really changed with BIM? I recently had a very edifying conversation with a professor about BIM. Now here's what he suggested. Nothing has really changed with BIM in the past decade. And I think he is right in so many ways. Software is very similar. Yes, we've seen many updates as companies are looking for ways to bring BIM to the field. But for the most part, not much has really changed since BIM was first introduced. And I'm going to go a step further. The process hasn't really changed much either. And to be more specific, we've seen or defined many BIM manager roles, but as Cliff Moser really cleverly wrote in the most recent issue of Constructing, now let me read this to you because it's really interesting. He says, if you are following that BIM execution process plan, you're still dropping handwritten notes in the typing pool's in basket. So think about this. Both process and technology need to change. BIM was a big disruptive force 10 years ago. It turned the industry truly on its head. Companies scrambled to implement it, but not much has changed since then. But why? I think if it starts with the data integration. Many of the software and hardware systems still don't speak the same language. In fact, 69% of organizations are manually re-entering data from application to application. And this is research from McGraw-Hill that says the inability to share data is holding back BIM greatly. Simply, or perhaps even more importantly, we need to come together as an industry to address this challenge to make BIM the most effective tool it can truly be from the office all the way to the job site. Perhaps the government needs to get more involved. We know the UK government has a task force that is driving the use of collaboration 3D BIM on projects. And here's the interesting thing. We see the government is taking an interest in the IoT cybersecurity. We're all painfully aware that we need to address the lack of interoperability before we can truly take advantage of all this collaboration. Perhaps this is the first really big step in taking BIM out of its decade-old shadows and moving BIM forward. That's your Learn It for today. Today's word of the day is Industry 4.0. This refers to the convergence of multiple technologies all at once. So let's go through this because it encompasses everything from mobile devices to robotics to 3D printing to data analytics. So you name it. The possibilities are really endless. Now I get really excited about this because the Industrial Revolution reaches all the way back to 1760. So let me break it down for you like this, because I love talking about this. First, we saw the emergence of the steam power and the mechanization through the power of heavy machinery. Then in the 1800s, electricity and the popularity of the assembly line flourished, enabling mass production in factories. So what happened then? By the 1900s, computers and electronics brought automation to the forefront. And this gave all of the workers complete control of machines with what? Just the click of a button. The good news is that we are now advancing with a whole new set of parameters. And now it's not just about what we can do with these machines and systems, but what they can give back to all of us. So this is the fourth, what we call the Industrial Revolution, which is being ushered in here in the 21st century thanks to what? The Internet of Things. So even more importantly, I'm going to be talking about all of this data. And there's a huge potential here in construction to leverage all of the data from Industry 4.0. So this can be seen in two key ways. First, data at the job site. Whether it's drones, connected tools, robotics, smart trucks, all of this will provide all of you workers with information on how to do this at the job and your job so much better. Machine learning, artificial intelligence with the analytics gives all of you contractors and every construction company data right out at the job site. So it allows for more accuracy on tasks, alerts for poor maintenance, and even offers insight that will be beneficial in the future. So we're really getting exciting here, right? Now the other side of the coin is that the data is building the building itself. Long after projects are completed, buildings will continue to produce valuable information. Much of this comes from installed lighting, water, heating, and even cooling systems that are put in place. So the real beneficiary is the building owner itself. Building owners can manage all of these systems all at once. So this cuts costs and maintains consistency. And it isn't all that what we talk about all the time. So while Industry 4.0 might be the next chapter in the Industrial Revolution, it's just beginning for all of us in construction. Industry 4.0, that's your word of the day. And thanks for watching Construct Tech TV, where we are talking tech at the job site.